I made this wave bracelet. It was really easy to do. The steps are pretty simple, and you can use a couple different methods. One of the ways that I've been working on it, it's not the way I made the first one, but I think it's the easier way to show, is to use a 2-needle method. And it's created by doing row 1 first as just a single column of right angle weave. And it's made out of the 4 cubes and 4 11-0. And each subsequent segment shares the 11-0 point bead before. So I'm going to just walk you through how to make this and then how to add the little wave to the top. At the end, we'll be putting it together as a 2-column design. So I'll show how to get from you know, just beads to this, and then from here how to add the second column, and then how to put the embellishment on top. So hopefully that made sense, and I'm gonna see if you guys like my new camera and lighting setup as well. So I'm trying to make improvements there too, so let me know, and let's get started. All right, so what I've got here on the mat are some cubes. These are 1.8mm cubes, and the color is, it's a seafoam opaque AB, a little AB coating on it. This was in the JB Party box from June, if you guys picked up that box from us. But any cubes around that size will do. And these are a matte cream opaque, 11-0. And both are Miyuki. For thread, any size D-ish thread is going to work great for you. You're going to want to use something that's a little bit more, like, you know, the wildfires or the fire lines are going to be more suitable for beginners. What I find is that when I try to work with the beautiful kind of like nylon threads, the beautiful colors work out great, and they are what I used in my original. Let me show you what I used really quick. I used 1G in this beautiful ivory color to make the sample. But it's loose, right? And so if you're a beginner, I would actually say go to a wildfire or a fire line and start with that, because that will help you, it gives it structure, it makes it easier. So cut a length that's pretty long, a good wingspan, maybe a little extra, and that's gonna be enough to do this first part. What I'm doing right now is I'm threading a needle. So I've got a needle on one of the ends of the thread that I just cut. And this is the other end of that same thread. So it's a really long strand here, starts here, keeps going and going and going, and then over here we've got the other end. And a trick you can try, if you're having any trouble threading your needle, is to just kind of flatten the end with your chain nose pliers. That really, really helps you get your needle on. And so here's my other needle. Just gonna hold it really tight here. And just bring that on like that. All right, I'm gonna fold that over. So what I did is I picked up one 11-0 seed bead, and I just brought those needles together and brought that to the center. So bring that to the center point there. Then you'll want to pick up on each side a repeat of a cube, an 11-0, and a cube. And on one side, go ahead and grab an extra 11-0. And then what I like to do is I just kind of hook that into the mat, leave it on the side. And I'm going to get a little closer. Forgive me, I'm still experimenting with some of this stuff here. All right, and now I'm going to get the other side going. So keep in mind we have that 11-0 in the middle. And on one of the needles, I just strung cube, 11-0, cube, and an extra 11-0. On this other side, I'm going to pick up a cube, an 11-0, and a cube. Okay. And go ahead and shove the cubes down, but keep the last 11-0 that we had, the extra from that other side, just keep it kind of close. Bring your other needle through it, going in the opposite direction. So you're crossing. So now you're in opposite directions, right? And then just bring that all down. And what you'll get is a ring that looks like that. All right, so starting from here, we've got the threads are both exiting from that 11-0 seed bead there. We're gonna do a repeat of what we did initially, which is we're gonna pick up on each side a set of cube, 11-0, and cube. And then on one side, pick up an extra 11 now. And this time you can bring it down to meet the center point that you created with those other beads. Just have that sit there. And then here with the other side of that strand, I'm going to grab the cube, an 11 now, and a cube. Bring that down. And then with this one that I was just using to pick up this side, I'm going to go ahead and go through just that 11 now. That's on this side, see? So let's go ahead and pull that. And I want to point out some of the looseness that's going on here. See how it's really loose? This is what I was mentioning about the reinforcing. Watch what happens when I tighten all of that. Just pull this all together. It tightens all of it. And the cool thing is with every subsequent addition of a circle, you know, a segment, the one before it stops moving. So it saves you that reinforcing step. That's kind of nice. And if you're using a thick thread like I am, I'm using a 0.006 wildfire, it's gonna really tighten up a lot. Look pretty good. Okay, let's keep going. So I'm gonna do a few more repeats and then we'll switch to the one I have that's worked ahead. But you're just gonna repeat this step until you have the desired length of your bracelet. So let's do a cube and an 11-0 and a cube plus one extra 11-0. And we'll bring that down. And then we'll do a cube on this side. And then 11-0. And then a cube. And I like to bring that down and then look back over here what I've got here. I go through the 11-0 on this side, just the top one, headed in the opposite direction of that exiting thread. Just go ahead and pull that. So you get, and I'm pulling pretty tight, you know, trying to make it really hold. So those first two that we did, they're pretty locked in now. This top one can still be loosened a little bit, but with every new one that I add, it'll get tighter and tighter. And if you keep doing that, what you'll get is something that looks like this. It'll just keep going. And this is where I've left off here, with my strands exiting from the top bead in opposite directions. So let's go on to step 2. All right, so we're gonna add the second column to this. And the best way to do that, I think, is to just choose the longer of the two strands you have here. And so for me, that's the one on this side. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna weave to exit from a side 11-0. So that's probably easier done by going around. And I'm gonna just reinforce this last circle so that it'll stay put for me while I'm working. And so there, I'm exiting from this 11-0, the side one. And I'm gonna go ahead and leave this other strand here, the one that is the one that was the side when I was doing the, you know, the figure eights. This one I'm gonna just let hang out for a while. At the end, I'm gonna actually use that to bring the embellishments on the top and to create the clasp closure on the side. So it's kind of cool that it's headed in this direction. You'll see why later when we put the end on. It'll be easier to do this little loop of 3 beads there. So we'll get to that. But from here, with the working one, that one that I just brought around, exiting from here, I'm gonna mirror everything you have here on this side. And again, it's going to be sharing the 11-0 seed bead. This time I'm going to be picking it up in the whole circle. So you'll want to pick up a cube, right? 11-0, it'll be your top cube, and 11-0. Sorry, a cube and 11-0. So far I have a cube, 11-0, a cube, 11-0. And it can actually be really helpful, especially as it starts to, you know, it's gonna change direction as you add. So it's kind of cool to visualize it. So you see this bead right here is this one for this side. This one will be my top. This is the first side one. I've already got that 11-0 there. So now here's my second side one. Here's another 11-0, which is gonna be the one that's facing down here, right? And now I need one more cube. So to summarize that, and of course there's a PDF with illustrations as well to back up this video where you'll see all this, but generally what I just did is I picked up 4 cubes and 3 11-0s. The 11-0s are in the inside. It's coming out of the 11-0 there. See, just like that. So what I'm going to do is go around, and what I mean by around is I'm just going to come up through that 11-0 that I'm exiting. This one right there. And just getting that other thread out of the way. There we go. So I'm going to pull tight, and see how a circle forms here? And that's our first section of column 2. So this is basically what we're going to be doing for the entire thing. What's going to change now though is this first segment only had 1 bead that it shared, which is the 11-0 I'm currently exiting from. And what I'm going to do next is I'm going to weave through the cube here, 11-0, cube, 11-0, cube, 11-0. And when I get here to this 11-0, I'm going to add the missing cube and link it to this one. And this is where right angle weave, you're sharing more than 1 bead now. So this, again, this one just shared the 1 bead, the 11-0, but each of these subsequent ones is going to share 2 11-0s. And just keeping track of where you are in space is the only tricky part of this, but you get the hang of it real quick. So I'm going to just quickly go through to get where I need to be. So I'm weaving now through this one, just go through these 3. Oops, sorry about that. And I'm going to exit just from this 11-0 here. So let's come down through this one. And picking up that cube I mentioned. And with this cube, I'm going to link to the 11-0. So instead of stringing cube, 11-0, cube, 11-0, in this case, my 11-0 is already there. I just want to connect to it. And so that's kind of the best way to visualize it. It does start to get a little tiny bit confusing. But if you just think about, okay, what do I need next? I need a cube because I'm exiting from an 11-0. And now I need my bottom 11-0. I'll need my side cube, my side 11-0, and the top side cube. And then you guessed it, we're going to go right back through here. So always you're going for 4 11-0s and 4 cubes. And in the case of all of these segments, they're going to share 2 of the 11-0s. So you're only ever going to be adding 1, 2, 3, 4 cubes. So let's pull that all tight. And if it's getting loose on you at all, you can just pull on everything, tighten everything up. But that's what we're going for, is that section there. We've got segment number 2 with 4 cubes, 4 11-0. And it's linked to the first side. Okay, so let's get to where we need to be to add the next one. Currently, I'm exiting from this 11-0. I'm headed in that direction. And I want to be exiting from down here. So let's keep going down. I'm just following the circle around. So go this way, and get out of the 11-0 there. Okay, so I'm right there. Now we're headed in a different direction. Remember before when we were in this 11-0 and we just needed to add a cube to link to this one? Well, now we're going this way. We're exiting in this direction. So we're gonna do our side first. It's the same steps, we're just doing it clockwise instead of counterclockwise. So let's pick up cube and our 11-0. That's the top side. Here's the bottom side cube. And this will be the bottom 11-0. I need the next inside bottom cube. And now it's time to connect to my 11-0 right here. So I'm just gonna pull that. And there you go. We've got 3 sides done. We need 1 more cube that finishes off our 4th side. We're gonna go through the 11-0 in that direction, the one we're exiting. So there's the 3rd one. I'm just gonna tighten up everything here. If it gets loose on you, pull this side. This is not completely tight yet, and it won't be until we get to the end there. You could even put a little stop bead on it. It's not a bad idea. And then from here, we're gonna weave around, and we're gonna be headed in the direction we were when we created the second segment. So I'm gonna do each direction one more time so you can see it, and then we will jump ahead. So right now I'm just traveling. I'm trying to get where I need to be. Just keep going. I want to exit from my bottom 11 now. And then I'm going to pick up a cube. Just one cube. And I want to connect to the side 11 now. I'm just getting through that one. And pull. And now we're gonna make that trip around, right? We're gonna go from here to get back through there. So we need our inside bottom cube, bottom 11-0, bottom side cube, side 11-0, top side cube, and back through our top 11-0 right here. It'll look like little net points to you. That's one way that I kind of visualize it for me. So that was our fourth segment. I'm going to go down through all the beads here on the side and headed in this direction. And exiting from the bottom 11-0. And so now we're headed clockwise again. So we're gonna have to do our side. This is the top side cube, side 11-0, bottom side cube, bottom 11-0, inside bottom cube, and let's hit the side 11-0 here. Right. It's like a little lattice or a net. And then we're just missing our top inside cube. So we pick that up, go back through that first 11-0 there, pull to tighten, and there you go, fifth segment on there. So we're just going to repeat what we've done all the way down to the bottom, and then we'll add our embellishment and put on a clasp. All right, so I'm down to the last two, so I'm just going to finish those up. I thought it might be helpful to see the last ones being completed. So this is just the side one there. Three cubes, 2 11-0. And then we're going back through point 11-0. So there's the 4. So I'm just going to travel around here. Oops, I went through one cube too many there. And as I was working this, I was just thinking about mentioning that I am using a really good tight tension. So like when I get to a spot like that, I do put some pressure on it. I think that helps here. And so I want to get down to the bottom 11-0. You're usually going to be working, in fact, you'll always be working from the bottom 11-0 to start your next segment. So I'm on that one. And I'm working the side first. So there's my 3 cubes. And we're going to connect the side 11-0 right there. And we just need that last cube to close that. So I'm picking that up. I'll go right back through that one there. All right, so that was the last segment. So what do we do from here? All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and just weave to exit from the bottom 11-0 down here. Also serves a nice purpose of reinforcing it. Again, here's some of that tight tension. I'm giving it a little bit of pull there. And now I'm here. Okay, so I mentioned earlier, we're gonna put a join here for clasp. And it's what it looks like on the finished sample. Let me just bring that over and show you. So it's the way that I put the clasp on, and you can put the clasp on now or you can do it later. I'm gonna put mine on later for the sample so you have a clear view of the beads. It's not obstructed by my chain or my jump rings. But you could, I wanted to mention, especially if you're using a closed chain, which it looks like in this case I was not. I was just doing a jump ring chain. But anything that you want to use if it's closed, it's a great option with seed beads as always. So put it on now with your join if you're doing that. I'm just going to go ahead and put on the 3 seed beads. That's a nice spacing for the jump. So let's grab 3 pretty uniform looking 11-0 there. And let's jump over and go through the one on the other side there. So it's a nice little connection. I'm going to weave around and reinforce that one time. And so you can weave around to reinforce that, or another thing you could do is just start your embellishing with the knowledge that we're going to be working the embellishment in 2 sections. So we're going to work one embellishment down one side and one from this side back down the other. So each of the threads from each side can reinforce the attachment for the other side when you get there. So just something to think about as you're working through it. Let's start the embellishment from this side, and it doesn't matter which one you go for first. You can do the wave part, the foam part, I guess is what I was calling it, which is just 3 11 seed beads, or you can do the dark crystal, which is one of the ones that was in the JB party box. It is the green with like an AB blue on it, and these are those tiny crystalline. To get you the size on that, give me just a sec. I can grab the measure on that. Here's the copper that was in that box, and the sizing on these is 1.5 by 2.5. So these are teeny crystals. There's with that said, there's leeway here. If you're using something different than what I've got, you can probably get away with something like a 3mm bead. Would be fine. Okay, so and again, it doesn't matter which side is which. They're identical right now, so you can just pick a side, any side. I've got the seed beads out right now, so let's go with the seed beads for this side. You want to be exiting from one of the peak beads. So for me, I'm exiting from this one. And I'm just going to pick up 3 11-0 beads. And I'm going to jump over my segment, my first segment. And I'm going to go through the next point in the net. So we're going to be working down the center points, the net points that were our focus when we were building the columns themselves. So, but you're always going to be going in the different direction than the one you're exiting from. So see how we were coming out in this direction? So I jumped over and I'm going to go through the opposite side. So kind of headed kind of in the same direction, but the goal is to make it lay across like in a sideways motion. So hopefully I'm explaining that well. Let me just show you a few times. So for now I'm going through that way, and I actually think it's going to end up being like the same each time. So here's 3, and then I'm just jumping down to the next net point. And yeah, thinking about it with a little more clarity, it's the same direction each side. So you see the little wave starting to form there? It's like the little foam of the wave. We'll just keep doing that. Go through the next net point. This is only my second time making this, so I'm actually, you know how sometimes you've got to remember what you did? That's what I'm doing in real time here. And this is stabilizing. It's reinforcing all the work that we did earlier. Okay, just go to the next net point. It goes pretty fast. All right, it looks like I had just enough thread. So if you did the full, say like 80 inches when you started, you probably will have enough to finish your whole side of the wave. If you don't, you're gonna have a lot more thread with this side, more than you're probably gonna need. And you can actually just use this strand to weave back and finish up some of the waves, and then from where you end up, you'll start the next side back down. So you could also add thread by bringing a new strand into the work. And I think if you go around a few times, it will weave in. You can also tie a little half-hitch knot and try to hide it, maybe on an inside bead. It's another way you could do it. But adding thread is really easy to do with riding a weave because you've got so many places to turn and spin that it works out really well. But so there's the bottom part of my wave, and I've got one more to do. I'm gonna pick up these 3 here. We'll just come right over here. All right, so that side is done. I'm gonna throw a little stop bead on here. So I'm just picking up one of the more wonky 11-0s I've got here and just bring it down, go back through the bead. I'm just gonna tighten it down a little bit. I'm gonna use that later to reinforce everything I'm gonna do with the other side, including its clasp attachment. Okay, so I still have my needle on the other side of the strand here. So what I'm going to do is pick up the 3 seed beads that we're going to use for the clasp connection. So there's those 3 11-0. And once again, just like on the other side, I'm going to jump over, and this is that stop bead I just put on. Let me move that so it doesn't confuse. Go down through that bead there. And that connects everything pretty well. Tighten that up. Okay, now I need to get over here. So I'm gonna do a little weaving around. And that's easier done now on the back side because you've got embellishment. So let's just take a look at where we are. We're through that 11-0 right there. And I'm just gonna go through the side. And again, this is just that stop bead I put on there. I'm just using it to keep this thread from coming too loose and losing my wave embellishment. So let's keep going. Let's weave around. And what I'm aiming for is one of my net points, the top one over here. And there I am. Okay, so I just weave around until I'm exiting from the top net point on the side that does not have embellishment. So here's where I'm at. And you'll just need to weave in a circle to get to the side you want. And again, just leave this extra strand here. We're going to use that right at the end to tighten everything up. So I just dumped out my crystals. I'm hoping I have enough left. I didn't think about that till just now, but we'll see. Okay, so what I did on the original is I picked up one 11-0 seed bead and 1 crystal. And I did the same loop and through that I did with the original 3 seed beads on the wave side. Just going from net point to net point. So here's what that looks like. I pick up an 11-0 bead and then a crystal. And then I'm going to go ahead and see I'm exiting from the net point here. I'm going to jump over and go through the net point over here. So I'm just going to pull that tight. And it'll just sit like that. It looks really cute. It doesn't matter which you pick up first. So it looks like I just kind of opted with going with 11-0 and then crystal. You can do either. And I also noticed that it's going to face a different direction depending on which side you're exiting. If you like that, right now mine are headed the same direction. That's what happened on both of mine versus not. So just, they're going to look great no matter what direction you end up having them go. I think that it works either way, but I tend to pick up the 11-0 first, and it's kind of heading in the same direction as my bottom one, meaning they're both slanting this way a little bit. And it's not super perceptible either way, so just see what you get. Here's my 11-0, and there's my crystal. And here's where I'm exiting from, that net point. So again, I'm just jumping over, going to the next net point. Pull that tight. And see, it's just gonna sit like that. Let's do a few more just so you can see it, and then we'll jump to the end. And I'm just thinking ahead of some questions that I might get. I think one of the questions, and it would be a great question, is will this process of adding this embellishment, as it's been known to do with right angle weave, will it make the bracelet shorter? And I believe that is a yes, just a little bit. So if you made it, say you made your first column and you're measuring, say you made that like 7 inches. I'm thinking to this video I might add an intro that explains that a little bit better. It'll be in the PDF too. I haven't made the PDF yet. But it's going to tighten up everything we did here. So column 1 and even column 2. It's going to probably take a 1/4 inch off of whatever you had originally. And so account for that. But it also could be made up for with an adjustable clasp. So if you're reaching this point with me here and you've not thought about that yet, as I didn't, then just know you can throw some chain. There's always a way, right? You can fix it. So there's that. Here's one more. And I've also, I should mention, I've also switched to using a more medium tension. I'm not pulling as tight as I was when I was making the base. So this is a little looser. I'm not pulling so tight that it, let me show you, that it cinches it. I'm not trying to cinch. I'm just trying to make it just kind of float. And that's pretty much the whole thing. Let's continue down to here, and then we'll weave in and finish up. All right, almost done. One more. Just gonna get one more 11-0. One more crystal. And there's the whole thing. That's the back, and that's the front. Okay, all we have left to do is reinforce our clasp area here, and then do the same on this side, and weave in, trim, we're done. So let me show that really quick on this side. There's a little bit of trickiness because of where we are relative to where we want to be. So we're headed this way, right? But we want to reinforce this. I found that to be kind of tricky. But the cool thing is we have the embellishment, so we can use that to get ourselves around if we need to. So let me just experiment with you guys really quick. Let's see if we can get back through. Let's see, I'm headed this way. I'm going to go down through this bead. And then do this one. All right. I keep going. Let's see, go through this side. And almost there. Okay. And I'm going to show you a little trick. One thing I noticed is no matter how much weaving around you do, getting headed in that direction was actually, for some reason, kind of eluding me. And if that's happening to you, I want to show you something that's totally okay to do, is get up next to where the clasp is through the nearest cube. And what you can do is just kind of go under the thread that's you know, here. So what I did is I just went under the bead, the 11-0 bead, and that got me up around. to the other side. So that just kind of tightened things here. And now I'm going to go ahead and just go through the 3 seed beads that join those 2. And so technically what I've done is I've exited from the cube and gone straight through those 3 added beads. But you don't really see it. It gets you where you need to be, and it still tightens everything up there pretty good. Go ahead and continue through that 11-0 on the next side. Let's see. Things are getting pretty tight here. If you're using wildfire like me, it'll start getting a little tight on you, but that's good. So I got an extra pass through that. I did do an extra pass when I added it the first time, so that's 3 through it. I think that's pretty good. I'm going to go ahead and weave in. Weaving in is super easy. This is also how you add thread if you're needing to do that. So you just start going through the beads. I like to work in the base. If you want to work in the embellishment, you can. But I like to flip it over and just work in the base, which is the right angle weave columns that we made. And just start changing direction. Go a few times. I'm just going to keep going here. That's the noise behind me is actually my kiddos. I'm filming this during summer 2023. And so my kids are home. They're being nice and quiet. This is really quiet for them. They're being really nice to me today. And it's coming up through here. All right. So you see, we're just kind of going in circles, and that is typically enough for weaving in. If you're someone who likes to knot and you know how to do a hitch knot, that's great. Go ahead and just do one of those somewhere on the inside. And by the inside, I mean like on one of the threads that's kind of on the inside. If you try to do it on the side and you're doing some pulling, tightening it, it might kind of move the side out a little bit. But I feel like this is really good. So I'm going to grab my burner really quick. And I'm just going to go ahead and remove that. There we go. So that side's good. We'll come back, we'll put a clasp on that. I'm going to do everything I just did on this side with the remaining thread on this side. Remember, we put a stop bead on, so I'm going to need to take that stop bead off. Just going back through it. Okay. Same thing here. I'm just going to weave around, and I'm going to try to reinforce this top here. And I want to show just one more time that it's okay to, because it can be really difficult to get yourself headed in the right direction out of the 11-0, no matter how many times I go around and change direction. I think maybe I could use the top to make that turn work out for me. But another thing that you can do is just from the cube here where I'm exiting, see, I'm going through that cube. Just go ahead and jump up and go through those 3. It's the 3 that join, right? Oops. So from the 11-0, from the cube, straight through the 3 11-0. And then you can continue through this side, just like that. And there you go. Looks pretty good. I'm going to weave in and trim. So all you'll have left to do once you've got all the weaving in done is put on the clasp. And all I did for that is I just opened jump rings, and I just attached them here to that little loop that we created. So just through there, right? And on that side, and it'll pull those beads up, make them pop a little more. One other thing I did is I put a little charm on the end. And that's just on a head pin with a jump ring directly to that loop as well. And I used chain to make a chain. I embellished that. And that's all there is to it. There's your wave bracelet. And what I have here on the mat is I wanted to show you how many crystals I have left and everything that I've made with what was in just one of the JP Party boxes from June. So I used cubes on this, 11.0 on this. And these are the little crystals, the tiny crystals. So I had enough to do this bracelet. I had enough to do 2 of these bracelets. And then I had enough to make the earring. Now, if I wanted to finish another earring, I'm looking at this thinking I might be short, but keep in mind you don't need to make 2 bracelets. So you should have enough if you made both sides of your earring, which I haven't done yet, but that should have been enough to do all 3 of those just from one box. So that's me thinking there that it would work out. And then if you want to see all the designs that not only that I did, but that Carol and Jennifer did, if you go to daniellewicksjewelry.com and you look at patterns and tutorials, all of the pictures of everything we've done here is available to check out, with patterns as well. Patterns for this bracelet, patterns for this earring, and now there will be a pattern for this bracelet too, plus a link to this video. Thanks for watching.